Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Bloom Carroll Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Present.
Mr. Bratton, Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Present.
Mrs. Sherman.
Number 3, pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, approval of agenda. We do have 2 addendums. 7F to add to your page under treasurer recommendations, and 9F5 under superintendent's recommendation and reports. And under public participation, Ms. Pease had to go home sick today, unfortunately, so she will not be doing her update for the K through 2. We're going to move that to the springtime. And I will make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Jen Sherman.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes. Number 5, approve the minutes from the following meetings. A, October 10th, 2022 regular meeting, and B, October 26th, 2022 planning meeting.
I didn't see any changes.
Everything look good on our end? So you make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
I will second that. Motion made by Rod Johnson, second by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. Number 6, public participation. A citizen granted permission to address the board shall speak no longer than 3 minutes at one time, except by consent of the majority of the board members present. A maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. The Bloom Carroll Board of Education policy requires that individual names not be used as part of a complaint or concern being stated to the board during the public participation part of the agenda. The board rests in its president the authority to terminate any remarks which may be defamatory, abusive, or otherwise cause undue interruption or interference with the orderly conduct of business. We will start tonight with performing arts and music boosters updates. You stand, come up here.
There, wherever you'd like.
Okay, hello everybody. I am Stephanie Herman. I am currently the Bloom Carroll Music Booster President. This is Jamie, she is my Vice President. This is my 4th year as an officer. The Music Boosters support music education in our district K through 12. Typically, we break even each year and have trouble saving for future large expenses. We just completed our 3 biggest fundraisers, the Crown Excellence Catalog fundraiser, the BC Classic, which is the marching band competition that we host, and football concessions. We are still assessing whether or not we took a hit from concession profits due to inflation. Concession food and supply prices are the factors that are making us nervous. We are extremely proud of our musical accomplishments of our students and the hard work of our directors, and we look forward to the upcoming holiday concerts at all the levels. We are very excited that the marching band finished the season with the highest rating, a superior rating, at the Ohio Music Education Association's state marching band finals. And as our future concerns are growth, it is important to point out that Bloom Carroll was the 2nd largest band in Class B at states this year, and we were larger than 17 Class A bands and larger than 9 Class AA bands. Yeah, we are getting very large. The classes are based on school population size. We have 43 current 8th graders in the band, and we are only losing 15 seniors. Our current storage space is split between 3 buildings for uniforms, instruments, and equipment, and the bands are currently functioning in a room that cannot accommodate them. This is not a problem the music boosters can address.
How many total band members do you have?
We have-
So total,
We have 85 if you include the guard, 70 without the guard, 72 without the guard? Something like that, it's right around 70. So I'm here to, my name's Jamie Bernan. I am the vice president of the Music Boosters, as Stephanie said. And I'll be honest with you, when I started this, I did concessions last year because my son's entering is in his third year of band. And he's been a band manager, and when I saw that it was here to stay, I was like, I better get involved, right? So I did concessions last year, and then I asked Stephanie, what do you need? And here I am today. So, but I don't know anything about band. I cheered and played softball all through high school and college. My son's dad played football in high school and college, so we know nothing. So it's been a learning experience for me. And then I also have the privilege of being a band nurse. So I've been a nurse for about 20 years. I've been a pediatric nurse the entire time, mostly emergency department, predominantly pediatric emergency and trauma. I teach for COTS here, and then obviously I work, well, not obviously, but I do. So, as I said, I've got more involved. I've learned a ton. And Stephanie mentioned the band room, and I didn't see it for the first time except for this year, and I went, wow. And then I saw it with kids, and then I heard how loud it was. And so you know what? You can download apps on your phone because there's an app for everything. And I downloaded 4 different apps to measure decibel levels. And I measured decibel levels for several different classes, not just the marching band, because we support all students of the performing arts. So 6th graders measured between the 80s and 90s, max of 99. If you know anything about safe decibel levels, they recommend 80 or below. 85 is when you can start to have harm. Now there is a certain length that goes into that, okay? Again, a lot of research, and I have I have research papers, and I reached out to an audiologist that I work with, or that works where I work. 7th graders measured in the 80s is half of the 7th graders, about 15 to 20 of the kids were in the room, and they measured in the 80s. They maxed out at 96. The 8th graders, there are 43 8th graders. They were regularly in the 90s, and they maxed out at 106. Regular mid to high 90s. 6th graders, there were 30-ish 6th graders. They were in the 80s, low 90s, and then the other half were 96, and then the marching band themselves regulated within the 90 to 100, max 105 for each period. So this is concerning for me as a parent and as a healthcare provider about the kiddos' ears, and of course for our band director for his ears as well. So I did some research. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, has recommendations for music, and they actually do health hazards evaluations. They have a program where the board can reach out to them, and they will come evaluate for free the noise levels to see if it's harmful. There will, any of the staff, any parent, anybody can reach out to them. They will come do a free evaluation. They actually did this in Alabama, and they found that for music classes, and found that it was harmful and had recommendations for them. So I have that for you as well. But I think that this is concerning, and I feel like this is an immediate concern. And as not only our band director is in that room for 8 hours a day, he has 5 classes, and then he has a break, and then there's the marching band. I can tell you, after sitting there, my ears hurt. They were painful. And then after listening to the marching band, they were painful. And I walked away, and I had a headache 15 minutes later, and then I felt a little sick. So I can't imagine, not only our band director, but also these kids who were in there for long periods of time with these 105, 106 measures, how it must impact them and must impact their hearing. I am happy for any of you to reach out to me. Obviously my information, Jen Lookup has it in the office, and then Stephanie has it. The band director can give you my information as well. I'm happy to email you. I have a lot more information. I have PowerPoint slides. I actually have recordings of how long of the decibel levels and what they averaged at for each class that I can share as well. I just can't share them via email because they're too long. but it is something that I feel is pertinent and needs immediate attention from the board.
You have the NEOS, are you gonna share that with us?
I can send it, absolutely, this is my copy, but they said they recommend 85 decibels. Every time that goes up by 3, they decrease the time, the maximum amount of time by half. So, the top of this says, on the first here, it says, if you get to 100 decibels, 15 minutes would be the recommendation here that they have on their workplace for musicians. And I can tell you that for the bands, they play and then they pause for 30 to 60 seconds to hear feedback from their band director, and then they play again. That feedback never goes longer than about 30 to 45 seconds, and then they start playing their song again. And that's how quickly. So it's seriously about 40 minutes with maybe 30 to 45 seconds between 3 to 4 minute songs. So it is concerning.
If you could email that to us, that would be helpful.
I'd be happy to. Yep.
And I was also in a band in high school, and so I've been a product of that.
That's great.
And I
'cause don't know anything about it.
appreciate all your information. What type of recommendations, like what are the solutions?
Well, so that's the thing, is I don't like to come with problems, I like to have suggestions
Sure.
for, solutions. So there are very expensive music, ear things that can be.
That's why I was thinking they
offered,
could do something
But
like
they're pricey, the audiologist sent them to me, because I was looking at them for my son.
Mhm.
Obviously, the easiest, quickest, thing that doesn't impact the students is to move them out of the room. So whether it's moving them to auditorium, we have the, elementary school that I know is being rehabbed for, I think, the administration office to go in, but I think there's a big cafeteria that might be beneficial for them,
Acoustics
but
though,
they need.
right, acoustics would be an issue there.
Right,
too.
so the thing is, when you think about, the problem is you need height,
Mhm.
right? The size of the room is one thing, but so, I'm in healthcare, so forgive my analogy, right? When you sneeze, you cover your mouth, and we all appreciate that, right? Because you want all of that, those germs to go into your hand and not to be dispersed out into the world. That's kind of how the way sound works. So sound comes out, and if it's in a tight area, it just bounces around. If you've ever had a really good sneeze and covered your mouth and it ends up back on your face, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
If you haven't had that, good for you, I have. But the thing with, if you don't cover your mouth and you sneeze, then it goes out and it disperses and alleviates. And that concentration is less. So think about that when it comes to music. If you're in a tight room with low ceilings, then it doesn't have anywhere to go and it just bounces off of those walls. You need the high ceiling or in a bigger room, preferably, depending on your size of your band, to allow that sound to dissipate. Does that make sense?
So those are probably the top two then, ear,
Which is expensive
Pods.
because they have to be able to hear what they're playing,
right?
right? And there are recommendations for that, but they have to be able to hear what they're playing, otherwise it's not gonna help. And it takes time to get those custom molds versus, and they can be hundreds of
Yeah,
dollars.
what's the value of?
So, but, I'm sorry,
What's the value of a pair?
I can look at the different types, but I know that you can get custom ones, they're a couple $100s.
I know, my son was in the construction program at the Career Center last year, so I know that they provided, they weren't custom, but they definitely helped.
Well, so ear protection like you wear when you go hunting, so I used to have the little ones that you
Roll up.
roll up and you put them in your ears and then they expand, right? So I used to wear those when I go when I go to the shooting range or I'd go hunt. And those were great for that, but those don't allow you to hear the music and make the changes, because you have to be able to hear everyone that's playing, right? So there's a little different need when it comes to music than it is for typical hearing, like
Right.
typical hearing protection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could email us that, we'd
Yeah,
definitely take a look at it.
So, thank you, I'll be happy to send
Thank
you
you.
the
Yeah,
information.
Thank you for
appreciate that,
joining in.
thanks for your time.
Right, next up is Hannah Thomas.
Good evening, my name is Deanna Thomas. I'm a mother to 3 children and an aunt to 9 additional children in our district. Along with so many others, when the allegations against the athletic director were made public, I asked the question, how did this happen? I read the civil and federal lawsuits and again asked, how did this happen? I scoured school policies in the ORC. I went line by line in the allegations and reviewed the corresponding policies, assuming there must be a disconnect or a gap in the documents that set the expectations and boundaries of all students and staff in our district. In that review, I did not find the answer I was looking for. Instead, I found that we have pretty thorough policies that cover almost all of the allegations set forth in the lawsuit. So I asked again, how did this happen? The news broke, the superintendent sent out an email, and then you all circled the wagons and cut us out. The news, social media, and rumor mill now control all communication about what is going on in our district regarding this case. I understand that you've been advised not to speak out on the current investigation, and I'm not here today to ask you to do that. I came here today to ask you, what are you doing to keep our kids safe? All of the individuals named in the federal lawsuit, except for the ADs, still hold their positions in the district. Because there is no line of communication, I have to operate under an assumption that nothing has been done to address the accusations of these individuals and their lack of adherence to district policies. These lawsuits and court proceedings will take years to settle. Are you comfortable sitting back and waiting to move while the same individuals continue to make decisions that impact the safety of our kids every day? Because I am not, and I'm positive I'm not alone. Let me be clear, I am not here today asking for anyone to be fired, but I am asking for action. When something of this magnitude occurs and the policies that govern seem to be adequate, one must ask where the gaps are that allow for a decade's worth of missed opportunities. Checks and balances of the named individuals need to be put in place as a safeguard. There needs to be a thorough review of all district policies and procedures to address the failure points and fill in any gaps. Any individual who works with children in our district needs to be reminded of what mandatory reporting means, because somewhere along the way, it has become discretionary. What are the action plans and how are you going to communicate them with us? You are all missing an opportunity. Trust is a fickle thing. Cutting us out of the communication and allowing for the further erosion of faith that the decision makers in this district will do the job that they are elected or employed to do is not the answer. Take the first step. Tell us what you are doing to protect our kids. Lean on this amazing community of people who care. Invite us to be part of the problem-solving discussions. Form work groups of administrators, teachers, parents, students, coaches, to get a balanced perspective on how to move forward so that we can all heal together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to address the first half, we understand you guys are all looking for more answers. That's what we have said is all we can say publicly at this time. Please understand we're limited in what we can say. We cannot comment on the confidentiality of educational records protected by FERPA. Our hands are tied. We're doing everything we can do at this time.
Can I make a comment or?
I just stated.
I've been in these situations
We-
before, that is not,
Mr. Abbott, I'm just,
that's one perspective.
I mean, I could sign in and ask you, but how are your hands tied on letting the district and the parents and everybody know what's being done to address these issues? I'm not asking about the allegations, we're asking about what's happening going forward. Because from our perspective, nothing's happened. Because there's been no communication. So when you say your hands are tied, your hands may be tied in certain regards as to what you can communicate, but having action plans is not something that is hand tying in your inability to communicate with the community.
I have just a follow-up. I don't expect any child by any educational laws or federal laws, state laws, anything protected to be discussed. But there is a lot of valuable information and insight in those lawsuits, regardless of whether or not one of those items is true and found. There are actionable items that can be taken to protect children in this district. And right now, the eroding faith that there is anybody that is advocating when the next victim comes forward, in whatever situation, Lord forbid it ever happens again, that anybody is doing anything to plan for that or fill in those gaps. We can't do better if we don't take a little bit of ownership and vulnerability and ask how we can do better, and then include the people that do this work every day, the people that are customers of this work, get participation, and start working towards building trust back. I do not believe that any individual acted maliciously, honestly. I do not think I'm standing in front of a group of people that want to see harm to children. And I understand that that may not be the resounding belief. But what I will tell you is that when you allow the community to control the dialogue and show no action and show no communication plan and have no trust or don't send out any form of olive branch, you are allowing that to happen. And it's destroying our school district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 7, treasurer's recommendation and reports. Travis?
Thank you. Item 7A is approve the October financial statements for a total expense of $13,428,883.50, including just under $7.6 million in consortium expenses. Page 18 of the electronic board packet, you have the executive summary for October. As is customary in October, we received the second of the quarterly income tax settlements. And you can see the growth there of 15% over that same collection the prior year, which is obviously much more than we had forecasted. About $143,000 higher than forecasted. Certainly that's good. It helps us again with the offset of the public utility tax loss. With current withholding, which is always a good indicator of the current economic growth and health in the district, is up 9% again, so that's good news. One thing I just wanted to touch on real briefly that's not in the report, but is House Bill 601 that is currently sitting in the House Insurance Committee. This kind of came out of left field, quite frankly, that relates to STRS, employer contributions. Currently, the board contributes 14% on all wages that's covered by STRS. House Bill 601 would follow an 8-year phase-in if enacted, which would increase the contribution by 0.5% each year. It would be obviously culminate in fiscal year 30, which would be at 18% at that point for the board to contribute. Each 0.5%, just to put it in the perspective of dollars, costs the board about $50,000. So that would be each 0.5%.
Is how much?
50,000. So obviously that would be a total of 400,000 approximately. That'd be additional board expense, really an unfunded mandate. I'm sure we've all
After the 8 years.
exactly
Right.
yeah. Once it would be fully enacted. It also addresses SERS, the school employees retirement system. The language is a little different. It has the same phase-in timeline, but it says may. The STRS says shall. So if this was to be enacted, the STRS contributions would definitely be going up, and perhaps, based on actuarial studies, the SCRS might follow
Would
suit.
it go up
which-
half,
it would
same
ex-
plan?
Same plan.
What do we currently get? What's our?
14% on
That's
SCRS.
SCRS
Yes.
as well?
So it doesn't say anything about the employee contributions, but certainly the board share would impact us financially, would impact all districts financially. But anyway, that wasn't part of the report, but something to.
400,000 for
Yes, SCRS would be about 128,000 total,
Total.
about 16,000,
Close to six.
yeah. So yeah, if you look at it as a.
Total.
Right.
Yeah.
Current carryover, you can see there's 7.27 million. Any questions on the October financial statements or the checks written during the month?
Everybody good? Yep.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Item B is approve an updated 5-year forecast for fiscal 23 through 27 and submit to the Ohio Department of Education. Page 37, and upon approval tonight, we'll certainly post this to the Treasury section of the website for full transparency and communication. But 37 is really the executive summary that we just, instead of going through the entire report, it really paints a summarized picture of where we are cash-wise, revenue-wise, expenditure-wise, and then ending balance-wise. You can see there this year looking good with a operating surplus. Quite frankly, the next 4 years, there's a lot of uncertainty. We met with the Finance Committee prior to this. There are two really big unknowns at this point. One, and we've talked about this, I won't belabor the points, but one is the Fair School funding plan that's in its second year of a proposed 6-year phase-in. However, again, the only first 2 years were the only parts of the biennial budget bill. So the governor's next budget bill here in the spring will be, it's really imperative that they stay on this funding phase-in that was originally proposed. That would help us dramatically. Right now, this forecast does not include that phase-in. You can say that's conservative, probably is, but as soon as it is enacted, it certainly will change the forecast. The other thing is, certainly there's been some preliminary numbers. Everybody's gotten their letters from the county auditor, the residents, about how much the property values are perhaps going to go up as a result of the triennial update. Those numbers have not been certified yet by the auditor. There's a lot of appeals going on right now from residents, and understandably so. So once those are certified, then again, the forecast will be updated as well. Those numbers are not updated as of yet. But again, full transparency, we'll update that and have it ready for the spring if that does come to fruition. 39 through 51 are just notes. Again, if there's explanations, if you see a number, there are explanations, it should be within those individual notes. And then page 52, for accountability purposes, again, is a comparison of what has changed from this forecast compared to May. And really not a lot. Things we've already talked about: income tax increase, public utility decrease, a couple of expenditures up and down, but really not anything substantial that's changed since May. So as soon as I have the new real estate values in December, we'll go over those in January, and I'll be able to update this accordingly as we move into the spring. Any questions on the forecast or the notes accompanying the forecast?
That's good. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Item C is approve the following fund-to-fund transfer to cover one of our semi-annual debt payments from the general fund to the Energy Conservation Debt Fund, $39,480.
Make the motion. Yep.
Motion made by Jim Sherman. I'll get it in a second by Jimmy Johnson.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Item D is approve allocation of November 2022 interest rebates from the qualified school construction bonds as follows: to be deposited into the bond retirement fund, $388,359.80. Again, when we built this building with the bonds that were interest-free, we are reimbursed those, and by putting those into the bond retirement, it drives that millage down quicker for the residents on their tax bills.
You like that? I'll motion this again.
I will second that.
Motion made by Jim Sherman, second by Joe Abbott.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Item E is to recognize the following donation to the Bloom Carroll Local School District to be placed in Fund 070, which is a capital projects fund, and used exclusively for the press box replacement project from the Bloom Carroll Athletic Boosters in the amount of $225,000. Again, this is the first step in what we have been talking about over the past few months for the press box replacement.
Awesome.
Make the motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And finally, from your addendum, item 7F, I'm thankful to recognize the following donation to the Bloom Carroll Local School District. WCOL 92.3 FM donated $400 worth of Applebee's gift cards that we were able to provide to the entire varsity football team and cheerleading team for team meals.
Great.
Okay, I get a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Jim Sherman, second by Joe Abbott.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yep.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Okay, number 8, old business. A, approve the following policies for a second reading presented 1 through 9. Good, can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
and Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. Number 9, superintendent's recommendations and reports.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to obviously acknowledge and thank all the veterans and staff members and students who participated in our Veterans Day programs last week at the high school on Wednesday. We had several speakers come in to present to students. And then, of course, on Friday at our elementary school in the morning and afternoon, and over here at the middle school, bright and early in the morning at 7:45 for a program. Students, obviously, it's an important day that we continue to recognize, and having the involvement of veterans in our schools is obviously very important for our students to learn about, past generations, but also current generations that are serving our country. So I just want to thank all the veterans that continue to make that a special event, and also I want to thank the board for supporting that. I'm not sure if it still happens in every school district across the country, but I think it's something that should definitely be continued in our school systems, and it needs your support to continue. So thank you.
They had a great turnout at the elementary.
Yeah.
I went to the middle school and the elementary. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming. It was good to see you there. Parent-teacher conferences, obviously a huge drop during COVID back in 2020-21 school year. We've seen an increase, and these numbers still don't sound good, but we had a 47% fill rate of our conference slots. And
Overall?
Yes. For the fall conferences, we've held 2 dates. We'll have 2 more in January and February. It was 43% the year before that, and then 35% the year before that. So it's definitely trending in the right direction, and great to see that involvement. Obviously, we had the performing arts speak tonight, but the band finished with a superior rating at the OMEA state finals. The fall sports are finally, all the sports are almost wrapped up. We had 6 league championships, and football continues in the regional finals for the 3rd consecutive year this coming Friday at DeSales versus Watterson. So in terms of extracurricular and co-curricular activities, a lot of kids involved in a lot of success for our students and student athletes, so that was good to see. The choir trip is coming up. We approved quite some time ago so they can start their fundraising, but the choir trip will be taking place to New York City on November 17th through the 20th coming up. And then I just want to wish all of our families and students and staff members a happy Thanksgiving as we start to move in towards the Thanksgiving holiday. I also want to let you know, we obviously are, there's some things that we obviously have been asked to refrain from doing from the prosecutor's office while the criminal investigation is going on. We understand what FERPA is, and that student records are protected, confidential student records are protected, and investigatory records are protected, and we can't comment on those. But I also want to let you know that, we do stress, and we talk to our administrators and who go out and talk to our staff members as well about expectations and professional boundaries of educator conduct. And we have continued to revisit that and emphasize that. And the expectation, the training for mandated reporting, for example. All of us that work in education, a lot of other professions, attorneys, doctors, counselors are also mandated reporters. But our staff receives training every other year on mandated reporting. The law requires once upon hiring and then once every 5 years thereafter. And we do every other year, and we've already made adjustments to have that training implemented every single year at the beginning of the school year. So I wanted to obviously point that out. We deal anytime we have safety or neglect issues, we don't advertise it, but every single day, somebody in this district, it seems like, is on the phone with CPS, including myself. And we are all mandated reporters either to CPS or law enforcement. We also have a school resource officer here that we work with closely on issues and reports. And, where it goes sometimes from there is up to those agencies. But we communicate with families. We have concerns. Staff members come to administration. Staff members make their phone call themselves. They do that sometimes in a partnership with the administration, maybe the building principal or assistant principal. But those are things that we talk about. We've also talked about communication methods with students. And in today's world of these terrible cell phones, and it's too convenient to get a hold of educators sometimes. And we talk about the proper expectation, and we review our staff conduct and staff-student relations policies about what the expectations are, not only from the district, but also from the Office of Professional Conduct and the Ohio Department of Education. So there are a lot of things that we continue to address, and when we can, when we don't obstruct justice, potentially, according to the prosecutor, there will be a complete review. We've talked about this in planning sessions, but there will be a complete review, not by us, from an outside agency, to come in and take a good look at all of our policies and practices and how we not only comply with the law, but what else can we do to make sure all of our students and staff members are safe and meeting all of the expectations for a true professional in education. So just wanted to kind of end my report on that, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those before we move on.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Sean, real quick though, on that, in regards to what we talked about with ESL elementary school,
Yeah.
did we get anything back? Because from the sounds of it, it sounds like we'd have to pay pretty much the whole.
We're working on that, to look at an additional school resource officer, be a school security officer at our elementary school, rather than sharing between the two campuses. We know that that's an expense, but we talked about that in our planning session. We're continuing to work with our legal counsel on what that will look like, what approvals we need, what contracts. We're working with the sheriff's office on the MOU that I'll eventually be bringing to the board, and asking for that approval as well.
Is it still viable? I know initially we didn't think it was going to be that expensive.
It is still viable. It really operates under the district resource officer that we have, so it's a little bit more affordable, but there's still quite a bit of expense with some benefits and things. But at a hourly rate, in terms of finding, the sheriff's office providing a retired commissioned deputy to work with us, that's at a much more affordable rate than an active, unretired SRO that we currently have on staff, that we pay all salary and benefits for the 9 out of 12 months a year in those agreements with the sheriff's office. So I'm continuing to work on that. I hope in December or January, I'm able to bring that MOU to the board and hopefully get it started. The individual that is interested couldn't start till February 1st due to his retirement from the sheriff's office. So that's something that we're looking at too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on to 9B, students and programs. Number 1, approve an overnight trip for the high school science club to Hocking Hill State Park, November 18th through the 20th, 2022, to be chaperoned by Joe Carter and Macy Beatty. And number 2, on the next page, approve the following chaperones for the high school choir trips to New York City, November 17th through the 20th, 2022. And that would be Shannon Carter, Lisa Martin, Amy Moore, Tracy Muck, Stacy Petty, and Lisa Weinkoop.
No further discussion, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
9C, personnel and employment. Number 1, approve substitute list number 4 for November 2022 as submitted by the Fairfield County Educational Service Center. Number 2, approve the employment of Adam Darren as an aide at the high school on a 1-year limited contract at step 0, effective October 28th, 2022. And number 3, approve the voluntary transfer of Philip Traverse from part-time computer technician to full-time computer tech, effective November 21st, 2022, pending acceptance of agenda item 9F2, Colby Jepson's resignation. Number 4, approve the following classified substitutes for the 2022-23 school year. Elizabeth Euler as an aide, lunchroom monitor, effective October 26th. Shalon Hubner as a van driver, and Melinda Killeran as an aide and lunchroom monitor. Number 5, approve the following request for FMLA leaves of absence for up to 60 days for Jim Holloway, high school teacher, effective October 31st, 2022, and Carmen Spellman, transportation supervisor, effective December 2nd, 2022. Number 6, approve Linda Millis as a long-term substitute for Jim Holloway, effective October 31st, 2022, for the duration of the FMLA leave. Number 7, approve the following request for unpaid leave or dock days for Terry Raver as an elementary school monitor, October 26th, and Kim Sauer, bus driver, March 30th through the 31st, 2023. Number 8, approve the placement of Sarah Stover, Mount Vernon Nazarene University for field experience and student teaching with Deborah Turley at the elementary school, February 27th, 2023 through May 26th, 2023. Number 9, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of verifications and background checks, as presented on the next page, A through N. Number 10, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 22-23 school year, pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks, as presented A through F. Number 11, approve the list of school volunteers for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of background checks.
Any further discussion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Motion made by Rod Johnson, seconded by Jimmy Johnson.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
All right, number 1, approve a MOU for the Every Student Succeeds Act with the Fairfield County Jobs and Family Services, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Number 2, approve the 2023 Alcohol and Substance Abuse Program Agreement with Fairfield Medical Center, effective for 1 year for athletics. Number 3, approve the 2023 Alcohol and Substance Abuse Program Agreement with Fairfield Medical Center, effective for 1 year for the Transportation Department.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Jim Sherman, seconded by Joe Adams.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Nothing under 9E. Under 9F on the next page, accept the resignation of Taylor McLaughlin, elementary school teacher, with 1 year of service to the district, effective October 20th, 2022. Number 2, accept the resignation of Colby Jepson, computer tech, with 6 years of service to the district, effective November 18th, 2022. Number 3, accept the retirement resignation of Jim Holloway, high school teacher, with 36 years of service to the district, effective May 31st, 2023. Number 4, accept the resignation of Marina Derringer as JV girls basketball coach for the 22-23 school year, effective immediately. And number 5, from the addendum, accept the resignation of Chad Little, activities director, effective November 10th, 2022.
No further discussion, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, seconded by Jim Sherman.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Are we allowed to ask on that? I'm sorry. You're accepting the resignation of the athletic director? Is that what I heard?
We're not allowed to comment.
We're not allowed to comment on it.
It says it right here, though. Accept
It's in the agenda.
All right, number 10, moving right along to new business. A, approve Wednesday, January 4th, 2023 as the date of annual organizational meeting of the board to be held at 6 p.m. in the Middle School Media Center, to be followed by the regular session of the board. In the event this meeting would be postponed to inclement weather, the meeting will be held January 5th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Middle School Media Center.
Second.
Motion made by Jim Sherman, second by Joe Abbott.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes. Number 11, board reports and information. A, Board of Education liaison updates. Number 1, facility management.
Nothing further at this time.
Just the press box,
Press
the
box.
donation.
Thank you for the donation and a lot of hard work going into that.
Yeah. I can do that.
2, personnel and labor management. No more at this time. Number 3, OSBA representative.
How was it today?
Yeah, I attended the annual conference today. It went really well. There was a lot of legislative issues that we'll probably see down the road coming into next year. But overall, it's a good conference. If anybody wants a book and look at it, I've got it over here. It was well received. They said it's the biggest one they've had in a long time, so a lot of people up there, but overall, it's a great conference.
Great. policy, just approved the second
Yeah,
reading.
just the second read. When is our,
Should have a new PDQ sometime in late November. OSBA's been a little behind, as you noticed on that, but we should be getting one soon.
This month?
So sometime probably in December, we'll have to have a policy committee meeting.
okay.
Number 5, safety, health, and wellness.
We had a meeting in October, as we discussed. We're still working on the naloxone, working with the Fairfield Department of Health, Fairfield Medical Center, and the medical officer for the county, which is Dr. Abbey, on that. So again, I think we'll probably have that in December to bring to the board.
Number 6, finance.
Yeah, we just met today. Big thing is getting the certification really for, we'll see probably next month, I assume, once they get certified for the bill state, so.
Good. B, upcoming PTO Booster Board of Education meetings. November 15th, Music Boosters meeting at 6:30 at the Bloom Carroll High School Media Center. November 23rd, PT Comp Day, no school. November 24th, 25th, Thanksgiving break, no school. December 6th, Bloom Carroll PTO meeting, 6 p.m. at the Bloom Carroll Elementary Media Center. 12/12, Board of Education regular meeting will be held here at the Media Center, in the middle school. 12/12, Athletic Boosters meeting, Bloom Carroll Middle School cafeteria. Number 12, adjourn from regular session and go into executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee, official, or student, or the investigation of charges or complaints against such individual, and to discuss matters which are subject or pending or imminent court action.
I'll make a motion.
My second.
Motion made by Rod Johnson, second by Jim Sherman.
Mr. Rod Johnson? Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes, time is 6:47.